Welcome to Small Caps, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Kerry Stevenson. Today, I'm speaking with Steven Yatomi-Clarke. He is the Managing Director and CEO of Prescient Therapeutics, which is a really interesting company. The ASX code is PTX. They have 4 blue chip oncology assets, and you'll see them behind Steven's head at the moment, which makes it really easy. PTX-100, PTX-200, OmniCAR and Cell Prime. So thanks for making my job easy, Steven, and welcome back to Small Caps.
Thank you so much, Kerry. Delighted to be speaking with you again.
Well, it's been a year, Steven, so let's start because I can't believe let's not leave it that long next time because there's been a lot of development with Prescient. So first up, can you give us a brief overview of those 4 assets that you've got?
Yes, so we're in oncology. We're only in oncology. We have some blue chip assets from the world's best institutes like Yale, Oxford, University of Pennsylvania, and so on, Moffitt Cancer Center. PTX-100 and 200 are our foundational assets. They are targeted therapies, which basically switch off problematic proteins inside the cell that drive cancer. They're in clinical studies producing some very encouraging data right now. And we're in this exploding field with our 2 cell therapy platforms. This new field of cell therapy, as the name suggests, is using living cells as medicines, which is having unprecedented success in cancer treatment. And we find ourselves at the front of that wave. They're a little earlier, but rushing to the clinic with a purpose. And between the 2 of them, we've got a very diversified pipeline and lots of momentum. It's an incredibly exciting time for the company.
You mentioned living cells in medicine. This is a new development, is it? How did you guys get involved with it? Because you talked about Yale and Penn, etc. Do you partner with forward-thinking research and development situations?
That's right. We like to piggyback from the expertise and the infrastructure of some of the world's best institutes. We couldn't hope to replicate what they've done. So yes, we look for these forward-looking leading institutes and license their best assets, and that's exactly what we've done here.
Talk to us about this, the OmniCAR and the Cell Prime. I'll come back to your foundation ones, which is PTX-100 and 200. But OmniCAR and Cell Prime, what are the difference between them? Where are you at with them, and what's happening?
In order to answer that question, Kerry, I'll just speak very briefly about what cell therapy is, because it's incredibly exciting. Who would have thought that in 2022, or in our lifetimes, we'd be bold enough to say a cure for cancer? And that's what some very, very conservative clinicians are now conceding, is that some of these responses that they've seen using these therapies are basically 10-year durable remissions. If it looks like a cure and smells like a cure, they're bold enough to start calling it such. And when you think about it, with cancer, cells are the problem, cells will be the answer. The cancer can grow anywhere, these cells can find them anywhere. It's the ultimate weapon in fighting a foreign invader in your body is your immune system. And any one of your listeners that's had a cold, you feel your lymph nodes swelling up, that is your body producing basically these frontline soldiers in your immune system called T cells, which are experts at fighting, recognizing infection, foreign invaders, and getting rid of them. But they don't recognize cancer. So what we're doing outside of the body, and what the field has been doing, is if we can just nudge them in a direction, just put a new receptor on it that can now recognize, instead of an infection, recognize cancer cells and grow up lots of these. That's called a CAR-T cell. We'll be speaking about it today. That is basically a turbocharged version of your own immune system that can now sniff out and hunt the cancer. And Kerry, what it's revolutionized. Like the word revolutionize is being cheapened with its overuse, but it is absolutely apt when it comes to oncology. It's the biggest paradigm shift in medicine, perhaps since the invention of the scalpel. It's produced these responses. The living cells grow and divide and hunt down the cancer as if it's a virus-infected cell, and it has had, and it's just the start. That's the incredibly exciting thing, is that this is relatively new. It's only, the very first trial was about 10 years ago. and we find ourselves now with 6 approved products on the market, and where and Prescient is at the cusp of we've got the next generation, if you like. We're bringing, whilst everyone's playing with a VHS tape, we've got Netflix, and that's where we are to be able to take this to the next level. It's incredibly energizing and exciting.
I love the energy that you have and the excitement around this, but just if we can go back to because it's called CAR-T.
CAR-T.
Yeah,
That's right.
what does that mean? I'm just trying to understand.
To bore you with the acronym, chimeric antigen receptor on a T cell. So it's basically meaning it's a chimera. So it's a mix between the patient's own cell and a new receptor. So it's basically saying it's a hybrid. So if you think about it, putting a new nose on the dog to make it sniff out and hunt down the cancer. And that's what we just put on that. That's what the field has done. And what we're doing is taking it to the next level by treating these like a Lego set where you can plug and play all these different receptors to hunt down any cancer, and to give doctors the control post-infusion to be able to switch it on and off and up and down and direct it from one cancer to another. It's And
you said,
who wouldn't be excited about that?
Yeah, you said any cancer, so it's not cancer specific.
That's right. That's the beauty of what we have here, and Australia should be very proud that there's a company like Prescient. So the very people who pioneered CAR-T, the University of Pennsylvania, also realised that the key to success in taking this to the next level is to make them modular. And that's exactly what Prescient has been fortunate enough to license, and beat out some very, very good competition, I'm sure, and able to secure that. But what that means as a genuine platform is that we're not locked into one particular cancer. We can get a binder for any type of antigen, any type of marker on any cancer in theory, and use any type of immune cell, a T cell, an NK cell. There's lots of different soldiers in your immune system. If you think of your immune system sort of got like an army, an air force, and a navy, and we can use any of them and modularize it like a Lego set to personalize it to that person's cancer, and that's what we have. It's incredibly powerful.
When we talk about CAR-T therapy, you said 10 years ago was when it first started out. You seem to be slightly ahead of the wave. Why is that? Did you get into this because of the University of Pennsylvania and your collaboration with them?
That's right. I think it's fair to say that around that time when people were tinkering with living cells and the entire oncology field at that point, we were dealing with small molecules, we're dealing with chemistry, which we have a couple of assets like that. And also people were dabbling in antibodies, making artificial antibodies. But to tinker with living cells was seen as a bit exotic. Right. I think a lot of people were sitting on the shelf, on a fence back then, seeing how it would unfold. But the unparalleled responses have forced people to get off the fence. We're seeing response rates that are approaching. There was one approved by the FDA not long ago for a particular blood cancer with a 98% response rate. Are you kidding me? Like in the history, that's the best oncology data surely ever. Wow. And prior to that 98%, it'd be rule of thumb, it'd be about 20, maybe 30%. And some of these responses go for years. So what is making people so excited is not because it's a really interesting new technology. Yeah, that's one thing. It's the data it's producing. Data is the truth machine, Kerry. You can Otherwise it's just hot air and stories. This is producing real data that is forcing people to say, okay, this is not some esoteric type of approach. We, in our lifetimes, can now start to treat cancer with curative intent, which is certainly it's starting off in a proportion of blood cancers, but it's again it's just the start. That's the exciting thing. We're not stopping there. It's it's only going to get better and better as this technology develops, and that's where we find ourselves. That's where Prescient finds itself, is an enabling technology to move ourselves and the whole field forward.
How do you protect? You said you licensed OmniCAR and Sol Prime. Is that correct?
Cell Prime is a different one that makes a better type of cell. The plug and play platform is licensed from the University of Pennsylvania and Oxford University. That's the modular CAR-T set. Yep.
So how do you protect yourself from others jumping on the bandwagon and having Prescient, I guess, be ahead of the wave?
Sure thing. Well, there's two ways. Their patents are a godsend in this way because they're protective. That's like a moat around the business. And what we are doing is not resting on our oars with the patents from Oxford and University of Pennsylvania. We're creating new IP all the time. So lots of moats. So in case someone manages to cross one of them, we've got lots and lots of moats. And also, the second thing we can do is to maintain our momentum and develop these as quickly as possible so that we maintain our competitive positioning, regardless of what the market does.
Development is actually quite an important part of the process. I'm speaking to you in September 2022. What's the timeline? Where do you think are going to be those sort of excitement periods, I guess, for investors as you develop this drug going forward?
With OmniCAR in particular, we've got lots of horses running in the cup, but with OmniCAR in particular, our public statements to this point in time have been the start of 2024 should be our first clinical trial. I think we're to be more ambitious than that, and especially due to the success of the data that we're seeing. So we can expect to update the market on that. Importantly, it's all about clinical leadership, having the best doctors in the world enthusiastic enough to want to run your clinical trial. There'll be news on that. There's no shortage of attention with what we're doing, as you can imagine. And in my career, I've never seen it. We've been approached by some of the best clinicians in the world approaching us. We've not sought them out, wanting to lead these studies with OmniCAR, which is something that you couldn't buy, but we're not allowed to pay them to do that. So that is, and they've got their fingers on the program now and trying to help guide it towards the clinic and into the clinic. So there's going to be no shortage of catalysts in the next 6 months, let alone 12 months and beyond. It's we're going to be, and just as we have in the last 12 and 18, 24 months, we're going to, keep ratcheting up our development, and it's getting very real at the moment. So we've secured our manufacturing and writing our clinical protocols. So it's transitioned now from an interesting technology to this is about to touch human veins for the first time.
Do you think the market has recognized this at the moment, Steven? The share price has been fairly flat. Now, look, I know the market, and I want to talk about the market and the recession,
Sure.
which is here, in my opinion. Inflation is here. Is healthcare and your products recession-proof?
I think the market nothing is completely immune.
No.
But healthcare is mostly, it's quite resilient to economic cycles. If you're a diabetic and the price of insulin goes up, what are you going to do?
Yeah.
What do you do? It's the same with what cancer is no different. A pandemic or a recession might mean you, at the very worst case, someone might postpone an appointment, but you're not going to cancel your cancer treatment. So, and that's where it finds itself. That's the beauty of it. And the biggest area of the biggest segment of healthcare itself is oncology, which is it's about 280 billion now, and it's growing to, by the end of the decade, to $500 billion, which is I can't even comprehend that. But I think that's for a couple of reasons. That's because there's the whole the incidence of cancer is going up because the population of the world is aging in general, and cancer, unfortunately, is more prevalent in people over 65. But also we're getting a lot better at diagnosing it. So the incidence of cancer, or treatable forms of cancer, is going up and up and up, and that's what's driving the growth of the market. For most sectors, I guess, you speak gleefully about a growing market. It doesn't give me any pleasure to say that the market for oncology is growing. because each of them is as a person with loved ones, and we all know
Yeah.
the problems of that. It's touched me personally, but
Yeah.
what we find ourselves in is having this incredible, tailwind really of market growth, and the fastest growing area in that field is cell therapy. From a standing start a couple of years ago where there were no drugs approved and the market was zero, it is a multi-billion-dollar market today, but 6 years from now is growing to US 37 billion in 6 years from nothing.
Wow.
So that's the field is exploding, and we find ourselves, Kerry, not on the wave or behind the wave. We're in front of that wave. So I don't know if there's a better spot for any investor to want to be, is to find yourself, not in a growing field, but at the front of a growing field. It really opens up opportunities. It sets you up for soft landings if there happens to be a hiccup, but the opportunities it presents, and it's impossible to measure.
Before we get on to the PTX-100 and 200, if you don't mind, you've got a share purchase plan open at the moment. Now, I know not all our listeners are shareholders at the moment, but what's the reasoning behind that?
We're topping up the tank. I guess we don't need the money. We've been good custodians of shareholder funds, but we have had such incredible momentum across all of our programs. We just want to keep our accelerator flat to the floor and maintain the momentum. And so we're topping up the tank now. Thought we'd go to existing shareholders first. I think it's always good manners to give first right of refusal to the people who've helped you on your journey that far, so far. And the response has been fantastic, even though it's just early days and booklets haven't been mailed out. So yeah, that'll top us up, and away we'll go again. And I know we spoke a year ago, but it was 2 years ago when we last did our previous capital raising, and it's a good cause for reflection, because I think your listeners might be doing, okay, what are they going to do with this extra money? They're going to, resting on their oars again. When we raised that money last year, we raised our pro forma at the end of it was 20 million cash.
Right.
And we were capped pre-money at about 20 million. And we now find ourselves with a cash balance of 12 million and a market cap, depending on a day, of 120 to 140 or whatever it is. So the way I'd be thinking about it if I was an investor is Prescient has spent $8 million and created 100 million of value in 2 years. That's the way I'd be thinking about it. And that's how the whole team thinks about it. How do we take a hard $1 from a shareholder and turn it into more than $1? And if it doesn't turn into more than $1, you need to really convince me that I need to spend it. So that's what we're hoping to do again, is to, again, get a disproportionate return and spend that money wisely and turn it into milestones that lead to value. And that's what we'll continue to do.
I love that, because actually a lot of people that are watching and listening do want to know that their hard-earned cash is going to be under good custodian, if you like. And I love the fact that you say take that dollar and turn it into more, because at the end of the day, you don't want to turn it into less, do you?
No.
Now, we've spoken about OmniCAR quite a lot. Do you want to touch on CellPrime briefly?
Yes, so CellPrime is a homegrown technology that we've developed in collaboration with the Peter MacCallum Cancer Centre here in Melbourne, a very renowned in worldwide circles and cell therapy circles, a renowned institute. We've got a collaboration with them. We own all of the intellectual property. The bottom line is OmniCAR is about a plug and play type of platform for cell therapy. What CellPrime does, it focuses on the cell itself. And during a manufacturing process, we drop in CellPrime. Think of it like a super reagent.
Okay.
And it produces a more effective, more youthful type of immune cell that lasts longer, kills for longer, gets to where it needs to get to in the tumor, in the body, to find the tumor and penetrate the force field once it's there. So it is tipping the scales in the favor of a more youthful phenotype, a more youthful type of cell. So very complementary to what we're doing, but also opens up a number of external collaborations, because we can drop it into anyone's process and create a better type of cell.
So CellPrime, you think potentially can be licensed out to other companies. Is that what you're saying?
That's right. It's a very low interventional step. You can drop it into anyone's process. It's ready for clinical trials right now. That's the important thing. It's ready to. We're going to be our own first customers. We're going to use it, but yes, it can be dropped into any third-party program and create a better product for them. It's a bit of a no-brainer. So we'll be going. We've only just launched that a couple of months ago. Came out of stealth mode, and we have and will continue to promote the benefits of Cell Prime to third parties.
I love it. It came out of stealth mode. That's very, that's going back to the analogy of the soldier.
Indeed.
I want to go back, if you wouldn't mind, because we don't have a lot of time left, but PTX-100 and 200, these are targeted therapies. Can you explain them a bit? One's licensed from Yale. Just explain them more to us, if you wouldn't mind.
Sure. So these are more conventional type of medicines that you inject. They're chemicals, if you like, but they're designed to switch off proteins that have gone haywire inside the cancer cell and bring it under control. And it's targeting just those proteins. It's targeted therapy. PTX-100 is licensed from Yale University. That is in a clinical trial right now here in Australia under the leadership of Miles Prince, Australia's most decorated oncologist. And that is producing some very encouraging data. Not only is it safe, which is important, but it's actually producing responses above and beyond what you would normally expect with all the competing drugs in this particular type of cancer called lymphoma. So that is due to fully recruit this year. And if that turns out to be encouraging, and we'll be producing an update on that, that will indicate to us whether the next trial we're talking about that could start around this time next year could be a registration study, like the equivalent of a phase 3 trial. That's the trial you take to the FDA to get your approval. So that is really compressing the development timeline right down. So that's super exciting, and we'll know where we stand very, very soon. And PTX-200 was developed at the Moffitt Cancer Center, that we have a very tight relationship with, the third largest cancer center in the US. They're in Florida. And this is in another disease called AML. It's another type of blood cancer where, unfortunately, patients die within 4 to 6 months. And we've had 4 complete remissions on that study so far.
Complete remission.
Complete remission.
Okay, but by the way, just before you go on, AML is acute myeloid leukemia for those that are not doctors out there. But yes, so where are you at with that? You get that complete remission is amazing.
Yes, that's right. That's right. So we're now at the tail end of a phase 1b trial to work out what the phase 2 recommended dose would be. We think we know. We think it's a certain type of dose, 45 milligrams. And yes, so hopefully we see a couple more of these responses or some other encouraging signs to embolden us as to what the next steps might be for that trial as well. So yeah, we've mentioned PTX-100 and 200 as footnotes, Kerry, but the truth be told, any company out there would be delighted to have any one of those assets. We're very proud to have them, but luckily we've got many more irons in the fire as well.
I think it's important for people to note as well that Prescient Therapeutics, a lot of biotech companies out there, and I'm not putting them down, I'm just saying that they focus on one drug, one set of clinical trials, going through all that. But what you've got is 4 very strong, and as you said, ahead of the wave drugs. So, it's got lots of opportunity and lots of upside going forward. Would you agree with that?
I would absolutely agree with that. Like investors might be used to investing in resources companies, but I'm sure they wouldn't invest in a company if they had one tenement, were drilling one hole. But that's often what biotech companies are asking people to, the risk they're asking them to accept. We don't have that. We've got, if you look at us, if you just looked at our pipeline slide, you would say that is the pipeline of a very big company. And we're definitely growing into that pipeline for sure. Like it belies our size. That's good for shareholders for a number of reasons. Yes, diversified risk, but diversified in terms of the type of cancer, how you treat them, the stage of development. But each of them is an opportunity for a winner, and especially with the platform technologies, which can light many external fires. So there is a disproportionate number of shots on goal at Prescient for our size. So we have, we're a big company in sort of small mid-cap clothing now, and definitely growing into that. We're continuing to grow into it.
Do you think somebody else will come along and say, we really like either one or all of the products that you have under development, and potentially take Prescient out? And I'm thinking of this from a shareholder point of view. I know that you've got lots of work going on, but would one of the big drug companies come and say, we'd like to take OmniCAR off your hands? Would that happen?
I think it's entirely conceivable, but I don't want shareholders to have the impression that that's my business plan. Right. Because I think business plans should stand on their own 2 feet. Yep. And companies should be brave enough to have the ambition to take it all the way themselves. And I would be very proud if Prescient had products on the market that we were controlling, and capture all of that value and become a very, very large company. In the meantime, if someone knocked on the door and made an offer, so be it. It better be a pretty bloody good offer, though, because I think the companies that can demonstrate that they can stand on their own 2 feet could command a nice premium.
Yeah, and your share price hasn't really reflected the excitement behind you at the moment. Do you think that the market hasn't really cottoned on to just how far you've come, especially with OmniCAR and that, as you said, you're ahead of the wave?
Yeah, I think the whole market's a little bit bruised in the last sort of 10 months or so. But really, when you step back, it's been a remarkable period of growth. I think we're one of the best performing stocks in the sector over the last 2 years, 5 years, and even 1 year, if you can believe that. Whilst the most peers are down sort of 60% or so, we're down 20%. But over a 2-year period, we're up 300%. So if you take that, depends on your time frame, but I think we also suffered a little bit of a disadvantage of being the first CAR-T company on the ASX, and right. We had to educate the market about what we had. How do you tell someone about a next generation CAR-T without explaining what CAR-T is, without explaining what immunology is? But as the market understands how real and explosive this field is, the more they understand that, guess what? The more they understand the value of what we've got. So we're playing the long game. I think it's with the questions we're getting are becoming more and more informed, which is encouraging. The more the people understand about the field and the peers, they realize how far in front we are. And that's why our shareholder base has basically doubled in the last 18 months.
Well, it's a very compelling story, Steven, but we are running out of time. Everyone knows I like to finish up with 3 reasons that our community should be sitting up and really taking, I think you've said it all, but let's wrap it all up and try and do it within 3 points if you could.
I don't know how to do it just in 3 because there are many more than 3, but I'll pick 3 off the top of my head, Kerry. So the first one is that, yes, we take a diversified portfolio approach here. We're a big company in small cap clothing and continuing to grow into it. There's no doubt about that. They are from the world's best institutes. So there's a sleep at night factor with the science. It's peer reviewed by over 100 papers. It's from Yale, it's from Penn, it's from Oxford. Sleep at night with the science. It couldn't be done better. I think the second point is our business model and the fact that we've got our internal programs, but many external opportunities as well, which have the ability to monetize our technologies a lot sooner. And thirdly is our positioning at the front of this incredible wave. I want shareholders to know just how explosive this field is based on real world data. It's not hype. It's not the next investment fad. It is based on a growing body of evidence that people are having these durable remissions, and there's this gold rush, and we have this shovels to the gold rush positioning where we can work with anyone and benefit from the growth of the whole sector, and we genuinely find ourselves at the front of this wave. Where else would shareholders want to be? And it's an incredibly exciting position and incredibly exciting time for the company.
Couldn't be in better hands with you, Steven Yatomi-Clarke, who is the CEO and Managing Director. His passion obviously is showing through. As Steven said right at the start, they're in front of the wave. This therapy, this CAR-T therapy is, it's just getting started, but these guys really are at the forefront and understand the size of the prize. So for more information, make sure you go to their website, And as I said right at the start, the ASX code is PTX. Go check them out. Make sure you do your own financial research first, though, ladies and gentlemen. This is never financial advice. It is us bringing you information to the market. Thanks so much for joining me today on Small Cap, Stephen.
Thank you for having me.